I've been wanting to talk about movies again for a couple of years now, ever since the Kappa Mikey video that I dropped in like 2017. But I've kind of typecast myself with the video game essay shit for a while, and I couldn't really think of a way to just jump back into it. Luckily, by the time this is posted, it's my 22nd birthday, unless, I get copy strike to oblivion, which means I get to post whatever the hell I want. So, as the title says, I'm gonna be rambling about my favorite films, and, well, there ain't nothing you can do about it. Binch. So, let's do this shit. So Blade Runner is that one Ridley Scott film that isn't a high-budget knockoff of a Mario Bava film. Instead, it's a pretty loose adaptation of a Philip K. Dick novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I think just about everyone and their grandmother has seen Blade Runner in some form at least once in their lives, and have most likely seen the many works inspired by it, so I'm going to keep this section fairly short. But despite its sci-fi setting of the distant year of 2019, the film is very much a noir film, with its strong use of German expressionist-styled shadow work, the rugged detective lead, and the using of the capital of film noir as its backdrop, Los Angeles. But what Blade Runner does better than anything else is getting you sucked into its atmospheric vision of the future. And while the story is certainly great, its 2019 depiction of LA is the thing that really steals the show here. It's as polluted and vile as it is beautiful and awe-inspiring. This is a film you should watch just to get immersed into the world alone, so definitely give it a look. Mel Brooks is by far one of the funniest directors to ever make it to the big screen, with stuff like The Producers and Blazing Saddles being basically instant classics. But if I had to choose one that stands out as his magnum opus, it'd have to be 1974's Young Frankenstein. I won't lie, I'm certainly biased towards this film, as I've been watching it every year since I was like 5, but honestly, I don't think that really counts into it. If I saw this movie for the first time today, I'd still just be as in love with it as I am now. Beyond just being a parody of the 1930s Frankenstein film and other classic Universal monster flicks of that era, Young Frankenstein is a love letter to its peers, mocking them as much as celebrating them in each and every frame. But I'd argue that Young Frankenstein even exceeds those films and stands out as an all-time classic. The late Gene Wilder and Marty Feldman work great off each other here, with some really hilarious lines. In fact, just about everyone's a riot here, almost every line in the movie being quotable as hell. In fact, every time I watch this film, I notice something new about it, and, that's pretty great. A real high recommendation from me. On the complete other side of the spectrum from Young Frankenstein is 1990's Jacob's Ladder, which I think everyone now kind of associated with being the Silent Hill movie before Silent Hill came out. And yeah, that's certainly true, but I think that just looking at it like that really is kind of dismissing how much of a great psychological drama it really is. Jacob's Ladder follows the life of Army vet Jacob Singer as he tries to adapt to life in 1970s New York after being discharged from the Vietnam War. However, he's brought something back with him that slowly creeps more and more into his everyday life. Jacob now has to confront both demons from the past and ones haunting him now. Jacob's Ladder often gets labeled as a horror movie, and I definitely think it has some pretty horrifying imagery, but more than anything, it's a drama about coming to terms with things and learning to let go. This is one of Tim Robbins' first serious leading roles, and he does an excellent job playing the everyman vet in this, and would 4 years later go on to be playing the leading role of Andy Dufresne's in The Shawshank Redemption, so he's certainly a very talented actor. Same goes for Mr. Line, who's vision for some of the otherworldly scenes is still quite disturbing 30 years on. It's not always the happiest film to watch, but it's one that everyone should see at least once, especially if they're a fan of Silent Hill. I don't think there's any film that captures the feeling of melancholy quite as well as Jin-Ro does. Be it the drab, alternate 1950s Japanese setting, the amazing score by Hajime Mizuguchi, or just the characters in general. The movie just oozes with that feeling of, well, just being sad. Set in the aftermath of an Axis German occupation of Allied Japan after World War II, we follow Kazuki Fusei, a member of an elite militarized police force known as the Cerberus Panzer Corps. After witnessing the suicide bombing of a young girl, Fusei suffers what is essentially post-traumatic stress disorder, as he often finds himself thinking back to that incident in the sewers. However, he comes to befriend the girl's older sister, and a bit of a relationship starts to form between the two. Though, behind the scenes, two police factions are having a civil war amongst themselves, vying for more power within the government. Unfortunately, this conflict drags the two of them into the heat of the conflict. Despite what the opening 10 minutes might lead you to believe, Jin-Ro is not really an action anime at all, but really a slow burn drama that touches on a lot of adult themes like dehumanization and PTSD. Despite grappling with these dark and messy topics though, Jin-Ro is a stunningly beautiful work of animation. It's a feast for the eyes, but the story is no slouch either, with one hell of a gut punch of an ending. Jin-Ro is no doubt a sad movie, but it never wallows in its misery to the point where it becomes annoyingly self-indulgent. As I said, it just nails the feeling of melancholy down perfectly, and is the perfect movie to watch on a gloomy day. I don't think there's enough words in the English language to describe how I feel about Once Upon a Time in America. I believe films are an art form that can drudge up emotions from even the most stone-hearted of viewers, but I've yet to find a film that makes me feel everything under the sun like Once Upon a Time in America does. The film follows the life of a Jewish gangster named David Arison, nicknamed Noodles, from when he's a young teen in 1910s New York to when he's an old man, aged prematurely by his hard life. We see Noodles' story unfold in a non-linear fashion as he tries to piece together why he's been summoned back to the city 35 years after he bailed town to go into hiding after the death of all his close friends. While dressed up as a mob film, Once Upon a Time in America is really a film about friendship and regret. The entire film is basically an old man reminiscing on his life, both the good and the bad. And let me tell you, Noodles is not a good guy at all. In fact, he's basically a monster. But when watching this film, you get to know everything about Noodles. You essentially grow up with the man. And even when he does some of the most reprehensible shit a person can do, it never fully sits with you. You just kind of see Noodles as a human being, and more often than not, you even end up empathizing with him, even though you really shouldn't be. You just see Noodles as Noodles, and for all the good things he's done and all the bad things he's done. And it certainly takes some cinematic magic to make you look past all the awful shit. Beyond that, though, Once Upon a Time in America is a love letter to old Hollywood cinema. It's stylistically gorgeous, with some shots alone being able to draw your breath away, and a score by Ennio Morricone that will haunt you for years after. But it's also a staunch criticism of those films, too, and the fakeness of them. Once Upon a Time in America never shies away from reality, but manages to make even the ugliest things astonishing. It's one of the last true Hollywood epics to ever come out, clocking in at over 3.5 hours, with some cuts even clocking in at over 4 hours. And if you decide to follow any bit of advice from my channel from now until whenever I stop uploading, please watch Once Upon a Time in America, and make sure you at least watch the 3.5 hour cut, as some editions of the film were heavily butchered. Hell, steal it if you have to. Just watch this movie at least once in your life. If I weren't able to sway you with any of what I've said, I'll link the soundtrack in the pinned comment below. Give it a listen, and if it doesn't convince you that you need to at least see this film, then, well, you might just be inhuman. Well, that's about it for me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I have a favor to ask you. If you have seen any of these films or are going to see these films, then come back and write in the comments what you think of them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. Also, would y'all like for me to go back into talking about movies occasionally? I swear they'll be more tightly constructed than this filler video here, but, yeah. Anyways, gotta run. I'll see you soon. Bye.